Art, thanks for coming in.
Thank you for
Appreciate
inviting me.
it.
Appreciate it.
Give me your real name, your whole name.
Okay, my real name is Arthur Clare Taylor Jr.
Okay.
Named after my father, of course.
All right. When were you born?
I was born September the 25th, 1945.
Where do you live now?
Well, right now I live in the old home place, which is off of Pleasant Avenue. There's a little lane called Groves Lane. I lived right at the very end of that.
Okay.
Clear back in the forest.
And before then, where were you?
Well, before then I was a lot of places,
Okay.
really, but I always came back to the old home place. I've owned it for years.
When you were, say, a lot of places, did you travel around in your job? Was that it, or what?
Well, I worked on the railroad for a good many years, and so I had to travel. Yes, I did.
Okay.
And then, of course, after I quit the railroad, I went to work at the prison at Lucasville.
Right. Okay.
And so I worked that for 30 years. I stayed home here, but
Okay. What shift were you on out there?
Well, I started off. I was on the second shift.
Okay.
And then a lot of my friends were on the third shift, and they talked me into going to the third.
Mm-hmm.
And I stayed on the third for 23 and a half years, just on the third.
That's why I never saw you out there.
That's why you never saw me much. And then I finished up, of course, on the first shift, Tower 1.
The library likes to get a little family tree. What were your parents' names?
My father's name was, of course, Arthur C. Taylor Sr.
Senior.
And my mother's name was Della Lois Taylor.
What was her maiden name?
Her maiden name was Duncan.
Duncan.
She was from over in Kentucky, a little town called Kehoe, Kentucky.
Now, was your dad from Sauter County?
Well, yes, he was born and raised in Raritan, Otway, which is,
Okay.
I guess, just kind of like on the border
Right.
of Sauter County.
Now, I'm really going to test you. What were your dad's parents' names?
Give me just a second.
All right.
Okay, my dad's father's name was Nathaniel Grant Taylor.
Grant, okay.
And his mother's name was Phoebe Edith, I think was her middle name.
Okay. What was her maiden name? Do you remember?
Glaze.
Glaze.
Her maiden name was Glaze, yes, sir.
Okay. Now, let's go over to your mom. What was her parents' names?
Okay, her father's name was Lawson Duncan.
Lawson Duncan.
Yes, and her mother's name was Rachel Blentlinger before she became a Duncan.
Say the last name again.
Blentlinger, German.
Yeah.
Blentlinger.
Blakely. There were a lot of Germans around here.
There was, yes, there was.
Has anybody done an ancestry or done a family tree search in the family? Or
Yes,
anything?
my nephew, Dan Johnson, he's a police captain there in Ironton.
Okay.
He just lives and breathes
Does he?
genealogy. Yes, he does.
He could probably go back further than your grandparents did, couldn't he?
Oh, he has.
Has he?
He has indeed, yeah.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, on my father's side,
Yeah.
of course, he's traced it clear back to England, but my father's, my father's great-great-grandfather married a Monacan Indian girl
Oh, okay.
from Amherst County, Virginia.
Oh, I see.
So the Taylors later, in the early 1800s, came to Ohio. So they're mixed,
Okay.
mixed race with the Native American.
So if anybody wanted to know, they would go see your nephew?
They sure could. Yep.
Okay.
Dan Johnson.
And also now, did you have any brothers and sisters growing up?
A bunch.
A bunch
Yeah,
is the
but
word.
there's only 3 of us left now out of 8.
Okay.
Yes.
You had 8 siblings.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, where did you grow up at? Where were you raised? In Raritan?
No, I wasn't raised in Raritan. I was born in Swagger Valley.
Swagger Valley.
Right there on the close end of Sodaville there, close
Okay.
to Sodaville.
Uh-huh.
And then Mom and Dad bought the place there on Groves Lane, which wasn't even called anything then. We just always called it the Holler.
Okay.
Because it's back at the end of that holler. And so I was raised there, and then I
And
went
you
to
live
the
there
service.
now, too?
I live there now because I got it from the estate.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Where did you go to school?
Well, I went to school at Glenwood. I went to Easter for a while, but I dropped out of school, I'm sorry to say.
Well, why?
Well, I just wanted to do something, so I went to the service. I went to the Marines. And
So you dropped out and went to the Marines?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Back in those days, you could do that as long as you passed the test, the entry test, the mental and the physical. I had no problem with it. So once I took that test, I was just
You were in.
I was fresh meat. Yep. So I volunteered. I wasn't drafted.
Okay. Now, when you were in school, when did you drop out? Like senior year?
No,
11th?
actually, I quit, actually, believe it or not, in the 8th grade.
8th grade.
8th grade.
That's
Of course, when I went into the service later, of course, I got my GED and I took various college courses and so forth. So I'm not totally illiterate.
No, of course not. But why did you want to get in the Marines?
I really don't know why I chose the Marines. I had a cousin that was in the Marines in World War II.
Okay.
Never knew him, but I've seen him when my father would point him out. Mm-hmm. He was captured by the Japanese.
Oh my.
Not that interests me to be captured, but I don't know. I'd see him, and then my dad would say, "There's, I think his name is Orville Harris." Never got to meet him. But then I had others that were in the Navy and then some in the Army and so forth.
Was your dad in the service?
He was in the National Guard back in the 1930s.
How about your grandfather? Was he in?
Not Lawson Duncan, no.
Okay.
The only relative that I've known, my two brothers were in the service, were in the Army.
Okay.
My oldest brother Ronald was in the Army, and he was in Berlin during the Berlin crisis. Mm-hmm. And my brother Roger, he's just 3 years, no, he was 5 years older than me. He was in Vietnam, in the Army.
I see.
And matter of fact, both tours while I was in Vietnam, I got to see him.
Really? While you were there?
While I was there. He was in Saigon, and he would fly up sometimes to see me. Uh-huh. And of course, I was up north. I spent all my time in I Corps.
Right.
But he, all the way from Chulai to the DMZ.
Are they still living?
No, they passed, I'm sorry to say.
Are you currently married, single, divorced?
I'm married.
Married, okay.
Well, married for the third time.
Third time?
This is my third marriage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you must like marriage then. You do it as often as you can.
I have no problem with it. It just, I lost my first wife when I was in Vietnam. It was an old story. She wasn't faithful. But that happens to a lot of people.
That happens. Well, do you have any children?
I've got 3 children here in the United States. Mm-hmm. I've got, and they're girls. I got several grandchildren.
Okay.
I'd have to stop and think, count.
Where are your girls? You have 3 girls?
Three daughters, yeah.
Where?
Several grandchildren.
Where are they now?
Well, my oldest daughter, Jennifer, lives in Ashland, Kentucky.
Okay.
And she's adopted 2 little Chinese kids.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. And they're just adorable.
Oh, wow.
And then there's Rachel. She's a nurse, and her twin sister, Rebecca, is a nurse's aide. Uh-huh. So they're doing well, and they've got children.
Do they live locally,
Yes.
those girls?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, now, how old were you when you went in the Marines? Were you 17?
I was 19.
You were 19?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you went into the Marines. Now, was that Camp Lejeune, or where did you, Paris Island? Or?
Well, where I took my basic was in San Diego.
Oh, okay.
MCRD. So I went to Camp Lejeune or Camp Pendleton later, after basic.
But your first basic was way out there?
Way out there. It was Hollywood Marine, they called it.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. How long was basic training?
Then they had reduced it because of the push to get troops over there.
Yeah.
Let me think. Let's see. I think before the big push, I think that basic was 13 weeks.
Okay.
But it was reduced, in my time, it was reduced down to 8 weeks. Mm-hmm. And then we had to go to advanced training, which used to be like 4 weeks or more, but it was only 2 weeks for me.
Oh, okay. What year was that?
It was in 1965.
So you joined up in 65?
Yeah, just as I was just 19 years old.
Did you go to the recruiter down here in Portsmouth?
I did. It was in the post office at
that
time, by the way, yes.
So where did you go for your physical?
I went to take my physical in Ashland at a big hotel.
In Ashland?
In Ashland, Kentucky, yeah. But
right.
of course the hotel's going now. It was a big thing.
So when you after your physical, then you would go to basic training, right? How did you get out there? Did you fly? Or?
They flew us
They flew you.
with 2 of my buddies. We joined on the program that we could go together.
Okay,
And
so
one of them's still alive. One passed.
the one that's still alive, is he local? Is he around?
Yes, he lives. I think it's in Clarktown, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
I see him from time to time.
Okay, tell him you did this. Okay.
I will.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you and 2 of your buddies are flying.
You have 2 of my buddies. Yeah, 3 of us.
You're flying to San Diego.
San Diego.
Had you ever been out of Ohio before?
Oh, I had. Yeah, I've been out of Ohio.
Okay.
I've been to Florida
Okay.
and all through the southern states, so it wasn't new to me. It was only the second time I ever flew, though.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the first time I flew was a little Cessna.
Okay.
My brother took me up, and then the second time, of course, they flew us out.
Your brother took you up?
Yeah, he had his pilot's license. Yeah.
Out here at Minford?
Mhm.
Is that where you did?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're 8 weeks in basic, and what was that like? What did you think of that?
What did I think of it?
Yeah.
It wasn't what I was expecting.
Tell me the truth.
I'll tell you the absolute truth.
Okay.
But looking back, it's funny now, you know. But then I'd never been talked to like that in my life,
Really?
or and treated that way. But it wasn't just me. I mean, there was all of us. You make a mistake, you paid for it.
Did you?
You paid for it.
Give me an example.
Okay, an example. We were on the rifle range, and my barracks was upstairs. There was a big 3-story building, and out front they had these pits. They called it a sand pit. Okay, well, the drill instructor called us out for formation, and we were to bring our cartridge belt and all of our equipment like that. Well, I had forgotten something. Left it in my wall locker up there. I forget what it was now. So I fell in, minus this piece of equipment. I forget what it was. I really do. But anyway, when he saw I didn't have it, he gave me like so many seconds to go up and get it. And I thought that was it. Well, when I got back down in formation, and I wasn't by myself, there was others that messed up too. He put us in the sand pit. And the sand pit was probably about 10 by 10. There was probably 6 or 8 of us in that thing. And we had to do jumping jacks and push-ups and swim and all this sort of thing, you know. And so that was just one of many.
One of many.
Yeah. And some of the guys, now there was one drill instructor that was pretty brutal.
Was he?
He was brutal.
Physically brutal.
Physically brutal, yeah. Mm. Yeah, we witnessed him beat a guy pretty bad one time. But the next morning, of course, the boy was at sick bay. And he was getting patched up. The drill instructor, Staff Sergeant Miller, he wasn't around anymore. They removed him.
He was the brutal one?
He was the brutal one, yeah. He was too brutal.
Okay.
It was too brutal for him. So what happened to him?
Even the Marines knew he was out of line.
Oh, they did, yeah, because he kicked the boy, really knocked him around bad, and he cut him up, you know, knocked him into the wall lockers, that sort of thing. But they weren't all like that. Because as a matter of fact, when I was in Vietnam, my first tour, I'd been there about 6 months, and we were having Easter service. We were up there probably about 20 miles or less from the DMZ. And so we were having a service outside there, and the chaplain was there. And I looked over and I saw this man sitting there, a staff sergeant. I thought, man, he looks familiar. And then it dawned on me, it was one of my old drill instructors.
Really?
Yeah, well, he saw me as well. Now, this was after basic, many months after basic. And
he recognized you?
He did. He recognized me. And he had made staff sergeant. He'd gone from sergeant E5 to a staff sergeant E6. And I'd gone from a private to a corporal. I was a corporal when I met up with him up there. And he said, I know you. He said, what's your name? And I said, Corporal Taylor. I said, you're Sergeant Darnell, aren't you? Really, he was a nice guy. And he said, I am. He said, how you doing, Taylor? And it was just like talking to my older brother.
Really?
Yeah, he was the nicest guy, completely different. Asked me how I was doing and everything, and he said, I see you made some rank here. I said, yeah, I did. And so we become friends after that, you know.
Oh, great. Well, then after your basic now, where did you go? Paris Island or Camp Lejeune? Or?
Well, no, I didn't go to Paris Island. See, that's the other basic training.
That's the other basic,
yeah.
That's right.
No, from there on, from San Diego, they bust us north up, Camp Pendleton, but it was various camps. They have various camps there. And they sent me to Camp Margarita. Camp Margarita it was. And then that's where we trained to go overseas.
That was 2 weeks, about 2 weeks.
No, we was at Margarita overall. Well, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here. I went to a smaller camp for the 2 weeks, especially infantry training. It was just strictly infantry. And then after that was over, then we went to Camp Margarita, and Camp Margarita was where we all trained as a battalion to go to Vietnam. And then they put us on ships, and they took us over aboard ship.
Were you married at that time?
No, I was single.
What did your parents think about you going in the Marines?
They were scared to death.
Were they?
But it was time for me to step out and and seek my fortune.
You were 19.
19, yeah.
You weren't going to go live in the basement, were you?
No, I wasn't. No, I was raised with work, with work ethics. I dropped out of school, but which wasn't a good thing to do. But
you dropped out in the 8th grade.
8th grade. Well, I was about three quarters of the way through it.
Okay.
And
Did you
Mom
work?
and Dad let me. Oh, I worked. Oh yes.
After you dropped out, you worked for a while.
Oh yes. I worked at Beals Farm there in
Farm work.
Yeah, I did farm work. And of course, I cut people's grass and this sort of thing. And so I was always busy. I never was one to sit around.
No future in that.
No, there wasn't. It'd be worse today. Now today, I could tell my grandsons.
Yeah.
I said, boy, I got by in my time. It was different.
Uh-huh.
It was different. If you could work, you could find work.
Yes.
And you got to have an education.
So at Camp Margarita now, that's California.
Mm-hmm.
Before they shipped you over, did you get any leave?
Yes, yeah, we got a little leave.
You got to come back.
20 days, I believe it was.
Okay.
And then we went over, and I never saw my folks again for, it was close to 2 years, actually.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
While you're in Hollywood or that, did you see anybody famous?
No, we didn't at all.
You're in basic training, or not there, sightseeing.
Right.
So did you fly over? You flew over.
No, we went over on ship. Now my second tour, I flew over.
Okay.
But my first tour, we went over on ships. There were 2 ships.
What was the name of the ship?
The ship I was on was the USS Henrico.
Enrico.
It was an old transport ship used during the Second World War and in Korea, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then the flagship, the main ship that had most of the troops, was the USS Bear.
Did you take that ship all the way to Vietnam?
All the way. Yeah, we stopped in Hawaii briefly and loaded supplies, and then we went to Okinawa and we trained a little bit there, made sure we had our shots and everything like that, all that caught up, and then they took us on to Da Nang, Vietnam.
So
that's when it got real.
That's when it got real. You got off in Da Nang.
Yeah, we went over on the nets and everything. And yeah, we were expecting something like John Wayne.
Yeah.
And we shaved our head the night before because we'd heard about the bugs and all this stuff. And so the next morning we went over on the nets and all that, and I thought, okay. And so then they put us on those landing crafts, which was exciting for a youngster, first time from home, and you'd seen the movies and all this. But then, and it was so hot, it was unreal. It was just, just unbelievable, just hot and humid.
What year was that?
That was in 66.
66. Mm-hmm. We're just getting started there, aren't we?
Yeah, it was really getting underway really good, yeah.
Were you in that first batch of Marines that went over there, or
No.
were there other ones there?
Oh, there was others already there. Matter of fact, I think the first Marines went over there in 60, I think it was 64.
Okay.
Just before, they sent my bunch over.
What was your division?
I was in the 2nd Battalion, 26 Marines of the 3rd Marine Division.
3rd Marine Division.
Mm-hmm.
What was your, were you an infantryman?
I was in the infantry, but I was in mortars, 81 millimeter mortars,
okay,
which is a part of the infantry. What they call 0341. Anything 03 is infantry.
Okay.
I was 0341. A basic rifleman is an 0311. I was 0341. So we carried a lot of equipment. We carried that mortar.
You broke down plate, the whole plate and all that sort of stuff. That's pretty heavy stuff.
The barrel and then the tripod and the base plate and a lot of ammo.
What'd you train with? What rifle did you train with?
Well, when I first started, we trained with the M14.
Yeah.
And then when I went to what we call ITR, which that was especially training in the mountains, we were using the old M1 Garands.
Really?
The M1 Garands, yes. But then when we got ready to go to Vietnam, they issued us the M14, which is a 308 caliber, 7.62. And then when we got to Vietnam, I was there, I think, about 6 months. And then they issued us the Mattel toy, we called it, the M16.
The Mattel toy?
Mattel toy, because we picked that thing up, we got this rifle, I thought, man, 6.5 pounds? You carry it by this little handle here like a suitcase, and the cartridge was just about that big versus the 308, carry more ammo.
Okay.
And to be honest with you, The original M16s were junk.
Were they?
They were junk.
Is that one that you got?
Yes, because we got that rifle, and they let each man fire 250 rounds to his weapon to get used to the handling. They told us the nomenclature and all this, how to break it down and all that, and reassemble. And we fired it, like I said, 250 rounds. Then he issued us our, I think 1, 2, 3, 8 magazines, and then of course the ammo for it. And then we went on an operation in July, and we lost some people.
Did you?
Because of that rifle, because they would hang up so bad.
I heard that you'd have to field strip them right in the battle.
Yeah, which that wasn't good at all. It was a bad time to have to do that. Well, what it was the action was so light, and you get that grit and sand in the action, and it would foul up. And you had to pull that rod back and kick that round up and hope it would seed another round in. And we lost some people in that operation. So you definitely had to clean your weapon frequently.
Now, you got off in Da Nang. How soon were you involved in operations then after that?
Probably within a couple of days.
A couple of days.
Because matter of fact, when we got to this base, to this camp we were setting up, we was relieving the guys right out of their foxholes.
What camp was that?
I don't remember what it was called. I really don't. I can picture it in my mind as I'm talking to you about it. I know the soil was kind of a red, like soil about like Georgia.
Okay.
And it had a stink to it. You know,
okay.
Vegetation rotting and all.
Vietnam had a peculiar odor, didn't it?
It did, but you know, it was a beautiful country.
Yeah.
Because when you see those rice paddies and things from the air, from the helicopters and stuff, it was really pretty. A little patchwork, little paddies, you know, little villages were quaint and everything. And
those farmers had been there for centuries, hadn't they?
they were, yeah, they had been, yeah. They just wanted to survive.
Yeah.
That's all they wanted to do.
So you, a couple of days after you're there, you're out in the field.
Oh yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we were doing patrols and things out of the camp.
What's the biggest unit that you would go out in the field with? A battalion?
Yes, if it was a big operation, yeah, we'd go out with a battalion.
And then squads?
Sometimes. Now, I never had to go out with a squad much, but with companies was typical. They'd break us into companies. And
they'd have the mortars.
Yeah.
Okay. Were you a mortarman all the time?
I was in mortars, yeah. But sometimes, of course, we'd ran out of mortar rounds.
Well, you got to pick up a rifle.
And you use your weapon, because every man in the Marines is a rifleman.
Right.
That's basic. You're a rifleman, whether you're a cook, you're a clerk, whatever, you're a basic rifleman, and you're subject to be snatched out there and have to do that.
Now, so it's pretty hot there, and you're out in the field, and it must be miserably hot. My cousin was over there. I fought the Vietnam War behind a desk at Fort Knox.
Well, yeah, somebody had to do that too. I mean,
down in the basement of the hospital.
Yeah.
But so he was over there, and he says the heat was incredible. I mean,
and prickly heat. I mean, you know, it just felt like little pins are sticking in you. You know, where it would just get into your arm and your arms down your sides and everything. You know, it was hot. I've seen guys drop out from heat exhaustion.
Just drop right.
Just drop down, yeah.
How long were you there for your first deployment?
My first deployment, I was there 13 months.
So the whole time?
The whole time. Then the second one, I was there for 12, a year flat. I never was hurt bad enough to be sent back to the States.
Were you ever wounded?
I was hurt, but I wasn't wounded where I would get a Purple Heart.
Okay.
I carried a piece of shrapnel in my left shoulder for months. When I got back to the States, it got to bother me. And
well, how'd you get that shrapnel?
I have no idea.
Somebody must have shot at you.
Well, you know, artillery and other mortars and so forth.
Purple Heart?
It could have been, but the thing was, I waited 6 months before I didn't even report it. It bothered me. But there was guys losing arms and legs and eyes and things like that. And
yeah. So, what'd you think of that? What'd you think about being over there for 13 months?
Well, I mean, politically or just generally?
Any way you want to talk about it.
Well, I wasn't a happy camper, but I didn't hate my government for it, you know. I went there because, you know, I joined the service, and I knew when I joined that I was subject to be used. That's what, you know, what the service is about. And I was proud to serve my country and my flag, that sort of thing. But as far as enjoying my My tour, the only thing I enjoyed at all was the camaraderie
Right.
with other people. I made some good friends.
Have you kept in contact with any of those guys?
Now the guys that I joined with,
Oh, yeah.
of course, one died from Agent Orange exposure.
Oh.
Died a couple of years ago. So the other guy, Tom Seekers, I see him from time to time, and we'll talk about it. He was in Vietnam the same time I was, but he was a cook.
Oh,
And the other guy, Roger Jones, he was a truck driver. He was motor transport, and I was in the infantry. We knew we were over there, but we never ran into each other. So, yeah.
so you would get every once in a while you'd get leave, wouldn't you? I mean,
Not when I was what they call R&R.
R&R.
I never took R&R out of country while I was
Really?
there.
Where
I
did
went
you-
to China Beach.
Where
What they call China Beach.
Did you go there?
I went there a couple of different times.
Okay,
for-
what was that like?
It was kind of nice. I mean, you didn't have to walk around with a weapon on you all the time, and because they had security around everything. And
Did you go into? You never got down to Saigon, did you?
I did. I did one time.
Okay.
My brother came up, and we spent 2 days together. They let me stay in the rear with him because I was out in the field when he came up there, and I was in. I had my squad set up, everything, and I was in this. I had my headquarters in this old French concrete bunker,
All right.
and I knew he was going to come up to see me because he wrote and told me so, but I didn't have any idea he'd come out in the field with me. And one of my men said, Corporal Taylor said, your brother's outside. I said, what? And about that time I looked over because he was real tall. He was like 6'4", and he come through there like that in that door because the door was only like about 4.5 feet tall.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And it was my brother. And of course we hugged and kissed.
Yeah.
Down on the cheek. That was my brother, And so he spent the night out there. My executive officer loaned him his pistol. So that's what he was armed with, a pistol. And I was just praying we wouldn't get hit in the middle of the night, my brother out there and everything, And so the next day, next morning, we caught the supply vehicle going back to Phu where our battalion rear was then, Phu. And so we got to hang out together for about 2 days. Then he had to fly back to Saigon. But my CO gave me orders about a week later to fly down there to catch a hop down to Saigon.
Oh.
And I spent a week with him down there. And that was pretty nice.
Spent a week with him?
A week with him, yeah. Yeah, that's pretty nice to see.
He was Army?
He was Army. He was a medic.
Okay.
But he didn't go out in the bush so much. He was mostly there at the hospital there at Saigon.
Is he still living?
No, he passed away of cancer. Yeah.
So you and your brother are down in Saigon for about a week?
Mm-hmm. You had to be careful down there as well.
You had to be careful?
You had to be careful because of zappers and so forth,
Well, I was just wondering, what was your rank there? You were a corporal.
I was a corporal then. I was a sergeant my second tour. I was a buck sergeant.
What does a young Marine corporal who's single do on his R&R?
Well, a lot of guys on their R&R, of course, they look for girls and this sort of thing.
Oh, really?
They get drunk. But a lot of them, I mean, not everybody does stuff like that. A lot of them would go sightseeing and that sort of thing, and, historical places. Because we had various places we could go to, like Thailand. Some guys even went to Hawaii.
Okay.
They weren't supposed to, but some of them flew from there on home for a while.
Really?
For a few days, yeah.
Okay. Just so they came back, I guess.
Oh, you better believe it. If you didn't come back, you were in trouble.
So, how long were you? You were there for 13 months.
13 months, my first
Out
tour.
of that 13 months, how long would you say you were out in the field on an operation?
More days in the field than not.
Really?
Yeah. See, I was in what they called a battalion landing team, which it was like a quick reactionary group. So if a unit was in trouble, they would call us out. Maybe sometimes in the middle of the night, we'd have to load up and we'd go to their aid to help them out.
Okay.
Which was frequent.
So when did you come back there, that first time?
When did I come back?
The first time.
It was August, September, I guess it was.
Of 60s?
It'd be 67.
67 then. Okay. How long were you back for?
I was back for, let me think, 67, 68, almost sooner. But I had re-enlisted for 2 more years, and so it was a part of my bonus was I was guaranteed 18 months, stateside. But at the end of the 18 months, I was gone. I was married by that time. My first wife.
Were you?
I got married then.
Okay. Then your first wife, was she from here or where was she?
Well, she was from originally. She was from Puerto Rico.
Oh, okay.
And then she moved to, when she was a child, she moved to New York, her parents and her brother. And then she had been married and divorced. She was living in Florida. I'm getting pretty personal here, I know I am, but it's all right.
It's all right.
Okay, and that's where I married her.
Okay.
And
you were stationed in Florida?
I was in Jacksonville, Florida. I was on a naval air station.
I see.
But I was with the Marines. I was in a security unit,
Okay.
there. And so we got married. We was married just a little while, and I got my orders, and the rest of it's history.
Did you have children with her?
No, she had 2 by a previous marriage, but they became like my own. I was very fond of them. Beautiful kids.
So how long were you in Jacksonville?
A little over 2 years. Mm-hmm.
And then back to Vietnam?
Then back to Vietnam for a year.
Did you want to go back to Vietnam? Did you?
I not really, but I was called, so I had to go. And I was hoping that she would save some money because you get additional pay you get hazard duty pay, and then of course for being married you get because you got a wife and so forth, and you could make a little bit more. And I was hoping she'd save it, but she didn't.
Didn't save it.
She blew it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. She was disappointed I even came back.
Oh my!
I didn't think she was that way when I married her, but I found out shortly thereafter. But it's an old story. Happens to a lot of GIs,
Now you're over there the second time. Where did you flew over this time?
Flew over, yeah, just by myself, there's other people on the plane, but.
Were there other Marines on the plane?
There was one other Marine with me, and I think he was a staff sergeant.
Was there Army on them? Was it an airplane? I mean, it was civilian?
It was civilian,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, they flew us in there, but when they land, they let you off. They take off pretty soon after that.
I bet.
Yeah.
When they land like that, did they come in pretty steep?
Not so much. No, it was a typical landing, but they didn't hang out much.
They didn't fool around there.
No, and there was the airline stewardess and everything. It was like a civilian flight.
Was it World Airlines?
I don't recall. I really don't remember.
So you flew into Da Nang again?
Da Nang,
And then what?
And then, let me think, it's been so many years ago. I knew I was going to originally I was to be assigned to what they called a CAP unit. A CAP unit, that's where it would be like a small unit of Marines, maybe a squad, and they would put them out with the villagers out in the boondocks, and you would help train the locals and this sort of thing. So you lived right with them. Of course, you got resupplied periodically, and you could come in battalion rear occasionally. But then they decided not to put me in a CAP unit after all. Probably kept me alive.
Did it?
It's probably a godsend, yeah, because sometimes the VC would attack those CAP units just as a part of their training exercises. Yeah, and but they sent me to the Air Wing instead. So I went to Tango Security. I was one of the security commanders there.
Were you in combat then? Or
I was, but what we did there with that unit is every so many days we would go around the local area on patrols, just to let Charlie know that we were still there, and but never had any real heavy contact. I was fortunate there. Most of our trouble was like with rockets, where they'd fire them into the compound, so forth like that, or they'd try to come through the wire. Sometimes you had to stop them.
Did you ever get up to Khe Sanh?
I've been to Khe Sanh. I wasn't there during that siege, but I've been all through that area up there. My first tour, I was. First tour, yeah.
I think Camp Carroll was
I was Camp Carroll, Con Tien, Quang Tri, Providence, that whole area up there. As a matter of fact, not to get too long-winded, but one day we were like on a big patrol, and I didn't know it until we made our loop that we had been in North Vietnam.
Had you?
Yeah, and coming back, we crossed that little river, which was only about maybe waist high, and I just filled my canteen out of that water, and it was cool. You
It
know,
was North Vietnamese water.
North Vietnamese water, and Lord only knows what was in it. Yeah, but I
You didn't get sick, did you?
I didn't. No,
Okay.
not at that time. I didn't.
So there were other times that you got ill, like what?
Well, when I came back to the States, I know I was getting this pain in my lower back, and I noticed some blood at another time. So I went to sick bay, and what it was, I had a bad kidney and bladder infection.
Oh.
Of course, now I've been fighting bladder cancer
Oh.
for the past 4 years.
Oh.
I don't know if it's a result of that or not, but it's been linked to the contaminated water at Camp Lejeune.
At Camp Lejeune in the
Lejeune.
United States.
In the United States, yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
I guess there'd been benzene and other chemicals been getting in their water source since the 1950s. That's what it was linked to.
Looks like you get a settlement out of that or some type, you know?
I get a disability
Okay.
because I'll never be the same.
Right.
You know, I've still got my bladder now,
Right.
but I don't know how much longer, and if it's going to spread, because I go back periodically to be examined and so forth. I've had
Do you
4
go to-
surgeries.
You go to the VA in Chillicothe or Huntington or?
I go to the VA here at Portsmouth. I go to Chillicothe Hospital there, but my civilian doctor is a different doctor. I go to a urologist for the surgeries I've had.
How's the VA treat you?
Well, I've never been treated bad by them, but you know, I don't know how to answer that completely. I've never been treated rude or anything like that, but yeah, I think just to be honest, if I had to have a major surgery, I don't think I would go to the VA hospital to have it done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have said that, but I
Well,
did.
no, that's all right. It sounds like your second tour was a little less stressful than the first one.
Well, in one way, it was more stressful because I was married,
Oh,
and I was married to a woman that wasn't faithful to me.
okay.
So I had that back in my mind. And
And you knew it at the time?
well, I just read between the lines for the first several months, and then finally she just dropped a bomb on me, so that was bad there. But as far as the conditions, it wasn't nearly as bad. No.
Okay.
I wasn't out in the bush all the time and that sort of thing. But we caught rockets. Rockets would come screaming in on us in the middle of the night. And as a matter of fact, the night before I left, I returned in all my equipment. I was to get on the truck, and they were going to truck me to the airstrip to board that plane to leave. And we got hit 5 times that night with rockets. Of course, they weren't just picking on me.
No.
They were mostly wanting to knock the planes out, and the choppers, that sort of thing. But some of them came a little close. You know, I couldn't do anything about it. I just laid there. You know, I didn't
lay
get
there
it. Just hoped they just went over and didn't get me.
Can you hear those rockets
Oh
coming
yes.
in? Or?
Oh yes.
Okay.
Yep. Now the first one, of course, boom, hits, and then you'll hear them the sound the alarm, you know, like that, you know, and your heart's a pounding and all that.
One of them
Then you hear them
like-
hit, you know. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
When you hear them explode, do they make a noise coming in though?
Kind of a swishing sound.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a sort of like a like that.
Did you bring back any souvenirs?
Well, I brought myself, but
Souvenir.
some scars. But the only thing that I brought on my first tour, I brought back, of course, my jungle boots. I was allowed to keep those, and I had a canteen that I got out of a bunker. It was a North Vietnamese canteen, which I've still got it.
You still got it?
It wasn't booby trapped or anything. I made sure of that. I could have come back with all kinds of things, but I didn't want to get too crazy about that. 'Cause
Yeah.
you get careless and you get hurt, you know. Because
still
they
have
would
your-
booby trap stuff. I'm sorry?
Still have your boots?
No, I finally wore those out.
Still have your uniform?
Oh, I got all my uniforms, yeah.
Do you?
I do, yeah.
Okay. Can you get in it?
No, I only weighed about, I think I weighed 180 pounds then.
Really?
Of course, I'd lose a lot of weight during operations, and I'd pick it back up later on. But no, I weigh over 200 pounds now.
That uniform's in the closet or the
It
attic
is.
somewhere.
I got it on display and so forth.
So when you came back, how long? Then you were discharged, weren't you?
Mm-hmm.
How long were you back before you were discharged?
See, I got back, I think about 6 months. I had 6 months. I was considering staying in, and had I stayed married, I would have. I'd have made a career of it.
Okay.
But since it was clear to her she didn't want to be married anymore,
Okay.
and she was disappointed I made it back alive. She didn't get the insurance
That
money and all
insurance.
that. Yeah. So I just told my commanding officer, I said, I'm going to get out and just try to do, I can always come back in if I need to, you know.
Yeah.
But
You got married again.
I did. And then she and I were married 21 years. And it just kind of fell apart. I was working at the prison during that time. And we just wasn't getting it. So
Did you have children with her?
had the 3 kids, yes.
3 children.
Mhm.
The girls.
The girls, yeah.
Okay. Are you in any veterans groups or like American Legion or foreign?
I belonged to Legion. I had for years.
Do you?
Mm-hmm.
Do you? While you were over there, did you see any famous people? Did you ever see?
Oh, yes, I'm glad you mentioned that. I did indeed, yeah.
Who?
I met Floyd Patterson, the heavyweight champion. Met him, shook his hand. And the actor Robert Stack, I met him. Nice guy, real nice guy.
Okay.
And I had a chance to go to Freedom Hill to see Nancy Sinatra and Bob Hope and all that, but I couldn't go because I didn't want to send myself and not one of my men. I was a squad leader, so they said you can send 2 guys from your squad, and I wasn't going to say I'm going to go, you know. So I just heard about it later on. I was a few miles away. They told me all about it, give me a full report all about it. Yeah.
Did you ever see Westmoreland? Did you ever see?
No. Seen a lot of high-ranking officers, but I don't recall seeing Westmoreland. I knew he was over there. He was there.
He was there.
I didn't see him.
He was there. So when you came back, you know, we hear today about PTSD and things like that. Any issues there with you?
Some. I haven't really slept a night in years.
Really?
As far as fully sleep, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I try not to talk a whole lot about it, you know, but I went to the VA hospital at Chillicothe because my wife prompted me to do it. My present wife, who is a nice lady, beautiful lady. She's probably a bit younger than me, and somehow she puts up with me. But anyway, because I was starting to have.
Brought her with you today.
Well, she's working. She works at Walmart.
Okay.
But I was having a problem with this right knee. Of course, now they're artificial. I don't have knees now. But I remember hurting it while I was overseas one time, and I fell on it. I fell really hard. I was getting on a helicopter. We were kind of in a hurry. And so I limped around for a couple of weeks on that knee and everything. But over the years, it started bothering me. Even though I was physically fit, I ran, lifted weights, things, it started hurting me. Well, I got my discharge. And then it got to hurt me worse and worse with years, especially working at the prison. She said, you ought to go to the VA and see if you can't get a disability for it. Well, I never wanted anything from anybody, you know. But I finally gave in. I said, okay, I'll do it. So I wanted to get into the system anyway, get my VA card. So I went up there, and they told me I didn't have enough proof that it was service-connected, the knee injury. But then this male nurse kept asking me questions. He said, were you in Vietnam? I said, yes, sir, I was over there twice. I told him what years and so forth. And he said, were you in combat? I said, yes, I was in the infantry. He said, was you in a lot of combat? And I said, I was in the infantry. He said, did you ever witness anybody being killed? And I said, well, I didn't want to answer all that. And I said, well, yes, I did. Did you ever have to handle bodies? And it went on and on like that. Asked me all kinds of questions. And he asked me how did I have night sweats and trouble sleeping and all this stuff. And I said, well, yeah, I have, but I just dealt with it over the years, you know. Next thing I knew, I was put on this, I think it was the Green Team or something, and where they were questioning me about PTSD, post-traumatic stress. And next thing I knew, I was being treated for it. But I just didn't really recognize it as a problem. I just knew I had trouble sleeping and noises would bother me. I never hurt nobody or anything like that, you know. Never was tempted to get crazy, but, you know, hurt anybody or anything. But it it's just something that's there. You know, you can't turn it off once you've been exposed to things like that. You know, it's just not anything. I mean, anybody that's been exposed to any traumatic experience that could have post-traumatic stress.
How did they treat that? Did you take medication?
Well, they gave for a while. I would take things to help me sleep, and but I didn't like it. I didn't like the way it made me feel, and so I just quit taking it. And I told them, I said, you can take my disability. I don't care. I don't really need it. But I said, I'm not going to take this medication because I don't like being lethargic all the time and this sort of thing. So I haven't taken it in years. I just deal with it, you know.
Do you have any guns?
Sure.
What do you think about that? You're okay with that?
I'm okay with it. I'm not going to turn them on anybody or anything. But I target practice, and I don't hunt anymore because I can't kill anything. Right. Now that I quit hunting. I don't have the zeal for it anymore. But yeah, I've got various guns. I collect, like antique guns, that sort of thing, along with my coins and stamps and other things, you know.
Okay. Art, is there anything else you'd like to say? I mean, we'll think of something after we quit here.
Probably. So if you want to ask me something, I'm okay.
I've run through my list here.
Okay.
What medals and awards did you get?
Well, I got, of course, your good conduct, the 2 Vietnam service ribbons. I got the combat action ribbon, the Vietnamese Cross of Gallantry, unit citation. That's for the whole unit. So I think that's about it.
Okay. You still have them? They're
I
on
still
your,
got them. Yeah, got them in my drawer there somewhere.
Your parents, when you came back, they're not living?
Not now, they're not, but they were just absolutely beside themselves.
They must have been thrilled.
Yeah.
Did they know you were coming?
Oh yeah, but they didn't know the exact day.
So you come up to the door.
When I got there, they had a big thing across the house there, you know, welcome. My nickname is Pete, so everybody in my family called me Pete. And it was welcome home, Pete, and they had cake and all that, yeah.
But they weren't sure when you were going to be there?
Not the exact day, no. when I come through them doors, boy, it was good.
I'll bet that raised the roof.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything else?
Yeah, you kind of got me kind of touchy there.
I know.
But not that I can think of. I mean, we can set for hours, but I don't have the time. But you know, it was a heck of an experience. You know, it's like the movie Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
You know, I put off seeing that movie for the longest time. And my stepdaughter, she said, "Dad," she said, "do you want to watch that?" I said, "Honey, I don't want to watch that," because I didn't take Tom Hanks serious at the time. But I know he's a good actor. I realize that now. And so I sat down and watched it with her. And you know, when they did the battle scenes, they had some good technical advisors.
Really?
They were that because the napalm and all that.
Yeah.
It was very realistic.
Okay.
In the same way with Saving Private
Ryan.
Ryan. Yeah. Now I didn't. She said, "Now, Dad, can you take this?" I said, "Well, I'll see. I can always get up and walk out." But those battles when they hit the beach, of course, I never hit the beach like that. You know, like in Private Ryan.
Yeah.
But the sounds and so forth, it was so realistic.
Okay.
It was.
You ever see a Full Metal Jacket?
I did.
That's a Marine story.
Now you know how that old DI acted?
No.
That's true. That's how they treated us.
Really?
Yeah.
And Miller was worse than that.
Miller was brutal. Yeah. See, they didn't show a lot of things on the movie that we experienced, but Miller would knock people around. First time a person ever put their hands on me, I didn't fight back. Because my dad wasn't even a punisher. You know, he would, of course, we was afraid of him because my dad was scary looking. You know, he was tall and dark and brown eyes and bore right through.
That's all it took.
That's all it took. I knew what he was capable of. But in there, what we were marking our uniforms with this little ink stamper, and we were supposed to wipe the ink off the top and the bottom of where our name was. And I stamped my uniform. There was the mark at the top and the bottom. They called them railroad tracks. Yeah. He saw that, and I won't say what he called me, but he called me a few choice words, and he just slapped the tar out of me. Miller did, yeah. And but one thing about it, you learned when he gave a command, you listened up.
Got your attention.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Thanks.
I thank you.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate you.